We're gonna share a little bit.
We have a few extra female founders today to add to our conversation. Okay. So thank you for being here today at this amazing conference. Today we're going to dive into the entrepreneurial world and what it takes to succeed as a female founder in the technology space. The women I have here today are just fantastic. Full disclosure, I am publishing a book in May called Geek Rising, and a number of the women on the panel are in the book. So I just wanted to put that out there. But before we start, I'd like to ask the audience, how many people here have started their own business? Raise your hand. Okay, so we have some founders in the audience. And how many people would like to start a business at some point? So you're looking for advice and tips. Okay, so after the session, we are going to have all the tools we need to start your company. So stick with me as I introduce our panel. So to my left is Maci Peterson. Maci is the co-founder and CEO of On Second Thought, a messaging app with patented technology, this is great, that lets users take back text messages before they get to the other person's phone. How amazing is that? So thank you, Maci, for starting this. Yes. Prior to this, Maci was the founder and editor-in-chief of the magazine Moiré Magazine, a digital publication for African-American women. She is a recognized expert and advisor on entrepreneurship and diversity initiatives, and was recognized on Inc. magazine's 30 Under 30 list in 2016. To her left, actually to your right, your right, is Jean Miller Truelson. Jean is the co-founder and CEO of Dogpatch Technology and the creator of the Flower app, an app that lets friends and families come together to support loved ones during important life events, whether it's having a baby or coping with illness. She previously headed up international programs for Linden Labs, which is the creator of Second Life, the largest ever 3D virtual world. So thank you for being here, Jean. To her right is Sarah Kunst. And Sarah Kunst is the founder and CEO of Pro Day, which is an app that lets you work out alongside pro athletes. So maybe we'll get some scoop on what it's like to be working out with some pro athletes today. Sarah's also a former venture partner with Fortis Partners, so she's seen both sides of the spectrum, being a founder and being a venture capitalist. And she's won many awards, like go on and on, but Forbes 30 Under 30, Business Insider's 30 Most Important Women Under 30, and Most Important African American Women in Tech. So thank you for being here, Sarah. To Sarah's right, keep on going with these amazing women, is Shanna Tellerman. Shanna is the founder and CEO of Modsy, a newly launched home design product that uses 3D rendering tools and virtual reality to let consumers see how products and furniture will look inside their own homes. I've seen it and it's very cool. So this is Shanna's second startup. Her first company, Wild Pockets, was acquired by Autodesk in 2010. And Shanna also spent a period with Google Ventures as an investment partner. So she brings her expertise on the VC side as well as the founder entrepreneurial side. And she's passionate about encouraging women to pursue careers in technology. And last but not least is Ari Hori, the wonderful Ari Hori, who is the founder and CEO of the Women's Startup Lab, which is an accelerator program for female founders. And she's got some exciting things in the pipeline, including 2 new branches of her business, which is Women's Startup Lab Living, which is basically a hacker house community for women founders, and also a venture fund that she can talk about in a little bit. So this is our panel. I'd like to start out, you fearless female founders, by discussing how you came up with your ideas for the business. Was it like one day you were hit by a bolt of lightning, or was it something that you mulled on for a long time? And Maci, if you don't mind starting, because I read your story about how you came up with the idea, and it's hilarious and wonderful. So if you don't mind starting, that'd be great.
Sure. So I came up with the idea for On Second Thought because, like most people, I sent a text that I wanted to take back. Autocorrect has a vendetta against me, and an ex-boyfriend had been calling, and at the point we'd been broken up for about 6 months, and I had written, "Hey, for some reason I keep missing your calls," and autocorrect changed it to, "Hey, for some reason I keep missing your balls," which was not at all what I was trying to say to him. I started slamming my fingers against my phone. It wouldn't let me take my message back, obviously. And so I followed up with the, calls, asterisk, to make sure he knew what I was talking about. But after not being able to find anything that would let me take my message back, that's when I came up with the idea for On Second Thought.
Okay, thank you. And Jean, your story is a little more emotional. Can you tell us about your parents were diagnosed with cancer and you were caring for them? Can you tell us about how this Flower app started?
So years ago, I was working at Second Life when my father was diagnosed with terminal gastric cancer. And I became his caregiver alongside my mother. And not long after that, then my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. And at a certain point, I got so frustrated with the tools around support for cancer and around health management that I called up my now founder and said, hey, can we build something better? Since then, we had built different products, we consulted, we were basically, going through the entrepreneurial, I think, circuitous route of, like, what is it that what's the problem that we're trying to solve? And that's where we came to Flower, because we realized that the biggest need was that people needed more tools around support management, more than anything else that we were looking at. So therein came Flower app, and being able to really support everyone. And by the way, my mother is doing better. She's doing great.
Sarah, tell us about Pro Day.
It's funny because I'd actually would cycle through a ton of ideas, and the idea doesn't matter, right? If you should find an idea that you love and you want to spend every second doing for the next 5 to 10 to 20 years of your life. But at the same time, there's lots of good ideas. And if I always talk to founders who are like, I want to start a company, but I don't feel like I know how to get an idea. There's an author that I really like, James Altucher, and he says, write down 10 ideas every day. And so our ideas aren't going to be helpful for you because we're already doing them and we're all going to be billionaires. There's no room in the space, right? But think about, I would say, so I came up with my idea because I was traveling all the time, didn't have time to go to my personal trainer, was following sports a lot, seeing a lot of things about sports and celebrity and fitness, and I was watching Ballers one night, and it just all kind of clicked for me, thanks to The Rock, right? So it's a little bit of a random founding story, but before that, I'd found some other really interesting ideas and was spending time on them. One was in the insurance space, and then I woke up one day and I was like, I was not put on this earth to find a new way to sell insurance, right? So but I would caution, don't worry too much about how we found our stories and how our ideas and how you can find yours. Just get in the habit of finding ideas and figuring out if they could be viable. Eventually one will just kind of stick and you can actually make money from it and you'll love it.
Yeah, actually I like that approach because I kind of did a little bit of both. I knew I wanted to start another company. I didn't have the idea. I actually wrote down the framework for what would my company feel like? What would it feel like to walk into the office every day? What would we be doing? What would the vibe be? The kinds of things that we'd be working on, the space. And I just kept coming back to something super visual. My background's in art and design and technology. And I was like, I know I want to walk into this office that is filled with something beautiful and visual every day. And then around, I don't know, maybe a few months after joining Google Ventures, I moved into a new house and had the experience that probably many people have had, where I was super excited. I'm going to design this house. We just moved in. We're really excited about it. I went to Pinterest. I spent hours pinning things on a board. And then I looked at my Pinterest board and I looked at my house and I was like, I still have no idea how to do this. None of these things translate into this house. Which of them fit? What goes where? What connects together? And weekend after weekend, that process of this is really fun and really going to be super inspirational and my husband and I are going to bond. We were fighting and annoyed, and I had 100 tabs open, and I was I closed them all, and I'm I totally give up. This is not fun. And we got halfway through our redesign, and then I was flipping through a West Elm catalog, and I was this is what I want. I want a beautiful catalog-like experience where it is staged, but it's all in my house, and I can shop from that. And that was lightning bolt for me. I was I know that that's possible. I can do that with graphics. I can create this super beautiful experience where you're shopping from your own house. And so that clicked into place because then I was that's it. That's the idea.
Ari, do you want to tell your startup story with Women
Yeah,
Startup Lab?
so I had a kind of aha moment. Like, I had a mother who passed away with cancer. And at that point, like, wow, what is going to be the rest of my life, right? I could have money, I could have fame, whatever that people might think, but when you die, you can't take them. So to me, it was, leaving something behind is my purpose. And the rest of maybe 30, 40 years that I got, that's what I can do. And so I felt starting some startup that make a difference in the world. And I started with EduTech. And while I was in the journey of running a company, and I keep seeing wonderful, wonderful idea coming up with women entrepreneur, they're kind of like ignored because not men's fault, but majority of engineer were young male and they rather code another dating app to solve their real problem, but not our problem. So I realized, but the app doesn't really solve the problem, but but it's encouraging. So I realized we need to do something. So I started a Women Startup Lab as more of a community. We can help out each other. And it's great and all that, feeling great about each other. But at the end of the day, what am I going to get it done? What shit is going to get it done next day? So I wanted to take it to next level where we're actually causing a result. So when I look at my EduTech, was aligned with my passion of making a difference. But when I saw Women Startup Lab, how it was coming together, amazing advisors and engineers and investors I want to help. So I decided to take that because I realized if I can have hundreds and hundreds of awesome women doing whatever they're doing, I will probably help them make the difference at the end of my life. So, some people go through because they're passionate about I can do it next 10 years because I love coding or design. In my case, was just I wanted to make a difference, and I chose the path. And this women thing would just resonated to me. And in order for women to thrive, and not necessarily just women, but the men's included. So this is the perfect audience. So anyway, so that's how it came together.
I just wanted to say something really quickly. I think the biggest thing that each of us identified is that first we found a problem, and then from there the ideas came from what the solutions to that problem could be. And we all found different problems within our daily lives, and then our businesses emerged from that. So I'd encourage you to think, what are those problems that you're encountering, and your idea or your business could come from that.
So I'd like to jump right into fundraising because when you look at the numbers, it's so depressing. In the Bay Area technology sector last year, just 8% of Series A rounds went to women-led technology companies, and from minority women, statistically, 0.2% of venture deals went to Black women founders over the past few years. So let's talk about fundraising and how to go about. And Shanna, I'd like to start with you. You recently closed a $8 million Series A round, bringing your total funding to date to almost $12 million. So can you share with us some of your secrets to raising venture capital?
I don't know if I have a magic bullet secret, unfortunately. I think there's a combination of things. The first thing is you do have to be working on something that actually has potential to be a multi-billion-dollar business. And so I looked, when I was in the VC side, I looked at a lot of fascinating, amazing businesses, and they were going to be lifestyle businesses where people could make themselves millions of dollars, but they probably weren't going to become a $100 million or $1 billion business, and they were seeking venture capital. And I was like, why? Venture capital is a pain. Like, you do not want it if you do not have to take it. So the first thing is, if you are in the category of an idea where you think the idea can be very big and very scalable and there is billions of dollars to be made, then you have the potential to raise money. If you're not, don't even go down that path. It's going to be a waste of your own time and your own energy. So that's the first one. When you're in a space it is massive and large, the next question is, do you have something that is actually differentiated? Is there a leapfrog? And in our case, it was really technology driven. And that was what got a lot of investors excited, because most of the Silicon Valley businesses so far have been driven by leapfrog scalable technologies. So having a technology, having a differentiator, having a business that can really grow, and then it is a lot of hard work. Like you need to show that you can go do it. So we did a lot of building, prototyping, confirming that there was interest, showing that there was a business model that worked, and then building a great team. And you put those pieces together, and it makes the case really easy for an investor. So no magic bullet, just I think a lot of the right ingredients.
I would say too, so that is like the sort of, if you don't have those things, you cannot raise money, right? You might get somebody to give you a little bit of money, but you're not gonna be able to scale. The other piece of it is, especially the early stage, having I would say both a reputation and a network that's going to make it easier for you to raise money. So raising $12 million is amazing. The thing that Shanna's not saying is that she has like the most obscenely amazing resume ever, and you know she was founder of a startup that sold and then was in venture capital and has like amazing degrees and is just like the most impressive person, you know, in the room. So it definitely helps. And then on top of that, building the relationships, right? So being in Silicon Valley, if this is where you want to raise money. How many of you guys are from the Bay Area? Or live here, whatever, pay rent here, a lot of rent here. So you know that's important if you want to raise venture capital, is to build those relationships. I always tell people, like, if you don't know anybody in VC, get on Twitter, because VCs have a lot of free time and they love to hang out on Twitter, right? And start talking to people, build relationships, because you might have an awesome business plan. And I see this sometimes when I'm in like Iowa or like Kansas or random flyover states, where you meet these people of really solid, amazing businesses, all the fundamentals she's talking about, but they don't know anybody to give them money, and so they don't have any money. And so it's definitely, I think, both. I raised money when my company was like, before we had done anything. I was watching The Rock, came up with an idea, and then 3 weeks later, the LA Dodgers had put money in. And the reason I was able to do that is because, in joining their accelerator program, is because I probably called like 20 people and said, hey, I know you know somebody at the Dodgers, you need to call them for me. And I think the Dodgers just gave me money so their phones would stop ringing. But if you don't have those in-between relationships and you're like, hi, I'm Sarah, I have an idea, and everybody's like, that's nice. You know, so you have to have a solid, scalable idea that needs venture capital backing. You also need to really put effort into your network and find the people who are gonna be your angels and your later stage venture investors.
If I could also add to that, because not everybody has the network, right? I mean, I grew up in San Francisco, born and raised, a public school kid, and I was able to fight my way to get into college, and came back and didn't have the full tech network, not until I finally got into tech and started working. And it was because of that, actually, that helped me build my network. But again, I had a different set of disadvantages and advantages, right? We were able to raise a friends and family round, and part of that was because my strongest alumni network was Linden Lab, the creators of Second Life. Like, the people I worked with there, they were my champions, they were my mentors, right? And I think I've mentioned this separately, like the importance of finding your tribe here and finding the people that you respect and want to work with. They will later possibly be your connectors to people that will help you fundraise that next idea, right? And connect you to the VCs that you might not have. Like, I didn't walk in with that set of connections or background, but was able to get those connections through my network. But again, it was a lot of hustling, right? But again, I did it through the people that I love and respect and work with, right? There's one thing about networking where, I used to actually really hate the word because it was very, like, superficial in the sense, like, you're networking to network. I would network with the people that I want to get to know, with the people that I want to work with, because those people are going to lead me to the people that I want as an investor, right? And that's been the key for me.
I just want to say one quick thing, just because it could sound really intimidating, the idea that you have to have the network to do it. So this is my second startup, like you mentioned at the beginning. My first startup I started in Pittsburgh, outside of Silicon Valley. I had come out of Carnegie Mellon, which has a great reputation, but I was in fine arts school there, just to be clear, not in a computer science program. So I definitely did not start out with any of these connections, and you have to, like you're saying, work super, super hard. And it took, like, in the first
5 years of that company, I had barely raised any money, right? Like that was a long, hard journey to get out here, to make the connections, to build it, but you can totally do it. But like most people start with no network, no connections, no experience. You have to like build your way up to it, and over time you build a network that makes it easier, but you usually start with nothing.
Yeah, like when I started this company, I didn't have a background in technology. I'd been in marketing and publishing for my entire career, and I moved my company from DC to San Francisco last year, so I'm very much a newbie to the Bay Area in general. And for us, we first did a friends and family round where we raised a couple of $100,000, and then we also did pitch competitions and won a handful of those where we won additional money. And then we, did our seed round, which we're closing on right now. And it takes a lot of persistence. You're going to hear a lot of no's, but it doesn't mean that your business sucks. It just means that you're talking to the wrong person. And I would also say that it takes, getting the right people to make those introductions for you. So people who the investors respect, people who they have strong relationships with, in order to get them to even take that initial meeting. And then what's been really helpful to us also was sending updates. So whenever something big would happen in our company, or even kind of small would happen, I would do, and I still do monthly updates to investors who have been tracking us. And that, because of that persistence, and then also, it's hard, but being an entrepreneur is hard. So that's something you have to get used to. But that is what moved the needle for us and helped us close our round, was just keeping people posted on what we were doing and building those relationships.
I just want to quickly add, I know funding is a really hot topic, and I run an accelerator, and I see so many entrepreneurs in this desperation and hopeful thinking, and spend way too much time in networking and not spending enough time building the fact and the results. And so I just want to make sure that the early stage could be you just started last week to all the way to 10 years having millions of revenue still call early stage. So sometimes you hear, saying go ahead, have a network. Assume that you have done enough work of some sort of attraction that people, it's not liking you, thinking you're smart, but here is the proof. And make sure that you spend that, because I see so many early stage companies, startup come to us, they have a story about asking funding, but when I said, do you have an idea, what is the proof, and they literally don't have them yet. Because we inundated ourselves talking about funding too much, or VC, and just the information. Heidi Rosen said 90% of idea are not fit for VC fund. So you really think about it, you could be chasing a VC, attending those conferences, thinking it's applied to you, but maybe your idea is not even VC. So I think I just wanted to get those categories so you can assess yourself and manage your time better. So that's one thing I wanted to point it out.
And the other thing is the first step isn't to go out and get funding. We bootstrapped for the first 9 to 12 months. So I started on second thought while I was still working at Marriott. And I would dedicate half of my salary to on second thought and building it, and then the other half to try to pay my living expenses. And some months I had to tell my landlord, you're not getting your rent on the first of the month. You will get it eventually this month, but I have to pay my developers. And so that's just the first step, is you're often bootstrapping and funding yourself until you do have a prototype or something that shows attraction and interest, and then you can start raising money.
I'd like to talk a little bit more about your backgrounds, because I think there's a misconception in the tech community that you have to be a computer scientist or engineer by training in order to start a technology business. And here we have 5 successful female founders who do not have CS degrees or engineering degrees. So if you can tell us a little bit about your backgrounds and what are the key skills and traits that you need to be successful as an entrepreneur, if it's not technology and coding. Anyone who wants to start with? This is an open question. Who wants to jump on it?
Pain tolerance. I mean, it's really hard work. Everybody's been saying that, and like you have to wake up every day knowing that your day is going to potentially be hard. Like even when things are going well, your job is to think of the thing that's not going well. So like you need to have this like inertia internally to say, I'm still psyched, I'm still excited, like I'm motivated, I'm going to go make things happen, despite that like all of the signals that are around you most of the time are pointing to the reasons that things might not work out, right? And that's just always going to be the case when you're a tiny little company trying to build something that's going to be great and going to be breakthrough. That to me is like number one.
Yeah, I would say if you're really good at having a job, like if people always promote you and you're really good at like going to meetings and stuff and you like it, don't leave, because this like kind of totally sucks. And for me at least, I mean, you can go back to kindergarten. It's like Sarah talks a lot in class. She's a bit hard to manage, but she's very bright. And that's always been true. And a lot of times you'll find that with founders. If you don't have a burning passion, and in a weird way, I think starting a company has turned into the new like go to law school or like become a doctor, where it's kind of like, well, I guess I could start a company. Don't do that, because it's really hard, and no matter how much you like look us up on Twitter and you're like, they really have their shit together, I guarantee behind the scenes we're all like, oh my God, this is falling apart. So, and that never ends. So I think that you have to have a really high pain tolerance. I think you have to think even on the worst day that it's like on the worst day, when you're driving home, you don't know how you're going to make payroll. You have to say, this is so much better than making $300,000 a year at Google to show up to work 35 hours a week. If you don't think that, then it's not going to be for you. And you can usually see that about yourself, no matter what career path you're in, somehow. And if that's who you are, then start a company, but just know that it's never going to be that fun.
What I realized, so I came from a foreign service and a global communications background, right? So I got into tech, but I was working on international strategy. But what I realized with Flower, that the passion that I had around technology and inciting and supporting empathy, whatever I've been working on, whatever I've built, and including Flower, I'm still doing that, and I still believe in it. So whatever, if you're willing to take the leap and to create your product, you have to believe in it, because the roller coaster of this experience is just mind-boggling, right? And I mean, you can totally believe in what you're doing and speak on a panel in the morning, and by the end of the day go, oh my God, what am I doing? Right? And it happens on a daily basis. And being in a regular job has definitely, it's much more stable than this, but the rewards are immense. And I've learned so much in this experience, and I've also learned that I have a ton more ideas. Like, this isn't going to be the first and the only company I start, right? And then it becomes this weird addiction. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to do the next one. And you're like, wait a second, I gotta finish this one. I'm gonna do this one. And but it becomes something that you absolutely love, like building a team, building a product. There's nothing like it.
I just quickly add, my investor said, Ari, we entrepreneur, we specialize in solving the difficult things in the world. So, you have a crazy people you're going to deal with, crazy engineer, contractor, whatever what that might be. And if you get like, oh, this is how it shouldn't be, then maybe you shouldn't, because there's just a series of challenges that always happen. Money to the people, to investor pulling out when they said they will. So it's like, I can't take this anymore. I have heard that word so many times from our founder. Emotional roller coaster, it's so hard. So, it's just like, I am the one who, like, you could choose this, but I tended to choose that difficult one. Then you have that little bit of the entrepreneurship gut. So that is another one.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're all getting at is starting a company is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. So you need to think about if it's worth it. So for me personally, the first 6 months of this year were the hardest 6 months of my entire life. And it's those periods when you're like, God, can I just have one good day? Like I just want one day. Because it's hard, you feel like the sky is falling. You feel like, you could lose your business at any moment. And what you need is that persistence to know, yes, people are offering great jobs and opportunities, but I know that I'm meant to do this, and the world is counting on me to bring this into fruition. So I would say that persistence is a huge thing. Another thing is faith. So for me, it's faith in myself, faith in God, because everyone's going to tell you you can't do it. Everyone's going to tell you it's impossible, but nothing's impossible. So especially when you're dealing with technology, I mean, we're literally creating things out of nothing all the time. So, and then I would say the other thing is boldness, because you have to have the faith in yourself and the thought that I deserve to be here. I deserve to be doing this. I am bold enough to try to break barriers and do things that people say are impossible. And you have to know that you have to have the assurance that that's what you're meant to do. And I don't think anyone would be on the stage if they weren't breaking some kind of rule in order to make their company happen. And so those are the 3 traits I would say are important.
So Sally Krawcheck, who's the founder of Ellevest, she's got a great quote. She said, "Being an entrepreneur is harder than running Merrill Lynch." And I'm not just saying that. I actually ran Merrill Lynch. So she was the CEO of Merrill Lynch, and she said being a founder and entrepreneur is even harder than that. So I like that you talk about how hard it is, but what is the biggest challenge you faced in your journey to this point, of the many?
So I'd say there's a few. The first one is I get the question, how's your husband's company? And my husband is my co-founder, and we run into very much the anti-married co-founder sentiment. One investor said once, "I'd rather invest in a bipolar sociopath than married co-founders." So it's interesting because we have to basically work to establish, hey, this was our founders agreement before walking in. Just like marriages can have a prenup, you can have an agreement on what you're going to do when things get bad, right? We've seen plenty of other co-founders implode as well, and I never saw anybody say they're never going to invest in another 2 white male co-founding couple or co-founding partnership either. So there's that. The other is also being able to work against the stereotype as I walk in the room, right? So we tend to, investors invest in, and research has shown this, in people that are like them, right? And many times I've walked into the room and I'm very clearly not like the person I'm sitting across from. And being able to, how do I work past that 30 seconds of categorization? Where did you place me? Did you put me in Tiger Mom? How do I get from Tiger Mom to visionary and I have an idea, right? How do I fit into a categorization that works for how I'm pitching, right? In order to get that investment or get that organization. To work with us, right? So those are some of the challenges when it comes to that I've faced.
Maci, if I can just pipe in here, you talked about man-interrupting, and I'm just in the middle of reading Feminist Fight Club. So do you want to talk about any of that, how you deal with the interruptions?
Oh yeah, it happens all the time. So I don't know if you're familiar with man-interrupting, but it's basically the propensity that men have to interrupt women when we're speaking. And it's funny because one of the challenges I was going to bring up was finding the right team. And in our industry, we're working with a lot of men, and it's very interesting to be not only a woman, but a minority and someone who looks much younger than I am. And so we had this one person on our team for a brief time who interrupted me all the time. We would be, whether we were in a meeting with investors or clients, not only would he interrupt me, he would make sure that he had the last word on everything. And of course, that did not work out well, and so we had to let him go. But I mean, it happens, or I'll show up to a meeting and with my co-founder who's a man, and people will ask him all the questions. I'm the co-founder and CEO. He's the COO. They'll ask him all the questions, and then they'll ask me, "So what do you do here?" And I'm like, "I grab coffee." Like, what do you mean? We'd hired this one guy, the same one. He was the man-interrupter, and we were in a meeting and with investors, and they directed all questions to him. And I was like, this man has been here for 2 weeks. He has literally no idea what's going on. But they would direct all questions to him, and then only once he validated my response would the investors then be like, oh, okay. And I was like, you're not even the right partners for us. So I would say that all of these have been really great litmus tests to see who you want to work with, whether it's from an investment standpoint or from a colleague standpoint. Something that someone said last year that really hit home for me was, it's easier to get a divorce than to fire an investor. And so you have to be very cognizant of whose money you're taking. And when I see behaviors like that, then I know I don't want to be in business with you, because this is just the tip of the iceberg, and it's in some ways an omen for what could come.
Does anyone else have any favorite challenges they want to share?
There's a lot of sometimes everything about running a company is hard or sucks, but the hardest thing at the end of the day, right? You could wake up tomorrow and a long-lost family member could have left you $20 million, and now you have enough runway for your company forever. And the problem you're going to find immediately is, cool, nobody in the world is using my product and nobody knows I exist. And those are not the same thing, although they're similar. Some companies have amazing PR, but nobody actually uses their product. Some companies have no PR and everybody uses their product. But the hardest thing at the end of the day, and the beginning, there's a lot of always tons of issues around, sexism and diversity and raising money and finding a team. You can solve all those issues, but at the end of the day, you still need to be building something that somebody wants and that people want at scale, whether that's like scale in revenue or users or however works to keep the company growing. But the company has to grow, and you actually have to be, like, to me, that's the hardest part. All these other things are kind of, they're not second order problems, and they're big problems, but at the end of the day, if everybody loves your company and it just explodes and gets massive, you're going to succeed. If nobody loves your company, it might take you years and years and years and a lot of time, but go look up color technologies, it will eventually fail.
For me, I think the hardest challenge I've faced is my own head. And I realized this after my first company. When we were acquired, there was this week where I realized it was like somebody had literally taken some giant boulder off my shoulders, and I was like, oh my God, this is what life is like. Like, you can go out and meet people after work and you don't think about work anymore. It's so weird. And the weekend comes and you just do something on the weekend and you hang out. And I was like, oh, this is like what people's lives are like. And I hadn't known that because I had started my company right out of graduate school. And I was like, this is what it's like to be sort of normal. And then I worked for a couple years and I was like, I don't know if I like being normal. And then now I'm back into it again and I'm like, oh yeah, this is what is so hard, is that my brain never turns off, like never, when I'm running the company, and I'm always thinking about the problems and I'm always thinking about the issues, and it doesn't matter what is going on. Like, I went on my honeymoon, I was in this beautiful place in New Zealand, and I'm like thinking about one of the problems, and I'm like, stop thinking about the problem, but it won't go away. So that to me is like the biggest challenge, is that you just you can't turn it off when you're running it, or at least I can't turn it off. And if there's a way, I want to know. If somebody has the magic secret for that, please tell me.
I actually said once, caregiving is a lot like running a company. It's a 24-hour job. You just can't shut it off.
Yeah, and then you have to take care of, we all take care of our company 24 hours. And so you also have to have sets of oxygen and vitamins, everything else, that somebody, or you have a plan to take care of you, because 0-1 game, we are it, right? The founder is it. So don't just consume yourself just about the startup, but take care of yourself. For me, the biggest challenge is that the higher you go, more funding you get, there's always new sets of a bigger problem. So I always tell myself, let's enjoy where I am, because it's only going to get worse. So that motivates me. People are different. Like, oh, more experienced I become, I'll be grooving these things. I hire more people, I'll be grooving. More money, and the more money I got, but the bigger problem I got, right? So I try to really embrace the moment I'm in. That's one thing. And The other part is the company goes through the phase. Like what you need to do as a mom for 0 infant, toddler, and teenager, there's a completely different problem. And then you deal with that, but you're a CEO, and you have to adapt that fast enough that people still want to work with you. And you have to have a new sets of talent in your company. So you're sipping through or growing them or bringing somebody else. So there's a lot of emotion going through you as CEO because you have to grow fast. You have to adapt the new knowledge. Then you have to motivate when you are so on the bottom of the rock. Yeah. Okay, and then growing that team. So I think that's the challenge. Never end. Congratulations.
Okay. So I hate to hop in and to even attempt to slow down this awesome conversation, but we're running out of time. We have a few more minutes. Actually, you're getting a gift of extra time. So since maybe we are at 40 minutes, maybe we can take a few questions from the audience.
Sure.
Even though we said we weren't going to do in Q&A, you get the bonus plan. Everybody gets the bonus plan. Do we have any questions for the panel from the audience? Okay.
Great discussion. Thank you so much for all those words of wisdom. Can you talk about accelerators, incubators for women-founded startups, please?
Startups, accelerators, incubators focused on women founders.
I was in an accelerator. I'm a big fan of them. Everybody always thinks that like they're too far along. And I'm like, if you need money and they're going to give you money, nobody else is going to give you money, it's probably a good place to start. And I don't think there are some great female-focused ones. Certainly Women's Startup Lab, Prosper Accelerator, there's a few of them all across the country. By no means do you need to go to a female-focused one. I think that the most important thing is to understand that accelerators are often the easiest money you can get, particularly if you don't have a network. Besides maybe like a Y Combinator or 500 startups, most accelerators are taking companies that no one's ever heard of before, and most of them are pretty good about being open to more diverse teams, more diverse founding situations, whatever it may be. They are usually hard if you're a single founder, if you're a sole founder, particularly a sole non-technical founder. But if it's you and a couple other people, either founders or early employees, it is some of the lowest hanging fruit money you can get. So if fundraising is a really big, and there's also great networks there and great things you can learn. But if you're having a hard time, finding the high net worths or the angels that you need, I think it's some of the easiest, usually 25 to 150K ever that you're going to get in your startup's life. I highly recommend accelerators.
I will also mention Pipeline Angels. They were one of our early investors. If you're a female founder or and you just have to have one of the founders to be female. But Pipeline Angels trains women of high capital become investors. They're helping both sides of the equation, and they bring in women co-founded entrepreneurs to pitch to these female investors. So it's a great program.
If you're looking for just like female-focused resources in general, like Google around, there's a ton of awesome lists that people have put together in the last couple of years, and just go through those and just reach out to all of them. But yeah.
And I'll do a little plug here. GeekGirlRising.com, which is our digital platform, has a whole list of resources, funding, accelerator programs, computer science classes, scholarships, everything. So you can take a look there.
Is it on? Thank you for sharing your stories with us. As some young entrepreneurs think that it's better to go for corporate jobs in the beginning so you can get all the learning before you start your own company. Do you have any thoughts on when would the right time would be to take this jump?
So I started my first company right out of school, never having worked. The pro and the cons that I saw, the pro was that I had no influence of this is the way you have to do things, which was really freeing. So this was just what I was doing, and there was no rules of like, this is how you have to structure things, or this is how meetings are, or this is the hierarchy. And we just ran, and we went really fast, and it kept the organization really flat, very unpolitical. It was just like a freeing experience in that way. The downside was that I had never had a manager. So I was like, I don't know what it means to be a manager. I don't know what a good manager is or a bad manager. Processes that you often learn in big corporations, you have to look to your advisors and other people to give that, but you haven't internalized it. So you're definitely missing some of the fundamentals when you start a company right out of school, but you're also probably one, I had come out of school, so I was making no money. So the fact that I was making a tiny bit of money was better than no money, but like I hadn't gotten secure in any way. I had no health insurance at that point, and so I just had no health insurance, and it was like, this is kind of scary, but like I didn't know any better. So there were just things that you hadn't gotten ingrained in your head that you have to have, which a job secures you into and makes it more nerve-wracking to start a company. I think either way works, but there's pros and cons.
Yeah, I started my first company when I was in college, and then I started this one after working in corporate for 6 years. So I've had both experiences, and like Shanna said, you know, when you start right out of college, you're not really sure how things work, and it's nice because you don't have those learned poor behaviors that you can pick up in corporate, but you also don't understand how to like run an organization, so you're just constantly winging it. And so we had to rely on like our advisors and those people to help me figure it out because I was 22 years old. But now, after working in corporate for 6 years and then doing this company, I mean, you still have those corporate behaviors that you have to unlearn, like politics, hierarchy, things like that. But it has been easier because I understand how big companies run and operate. So since we've started focusing on licensing to other corporations, I understand like timelines and how much time these can take, or you know who to identify within their company as like the person that I need to talk to. And so those things I just have better insight into because I've been there before.
Also, research has shown that the average age of a successful founder is 39. So it actually shows that more experience lends to greater success. But I do find myself envious of those that were able to do it right out of college, because there's a lot of learning to be had in that first experience if you treat it as this is a learning experience as well, right? And you're not just, I mean, sure, you can always go for the billion-dollar company, but if it doesn't work out that way, it's still a very valuable learning experience.
And that actually reminds me of something my dad told me when I was a senior in college. I was deciding if I wanted to run my company full-time upon graduation or go to grad school or do just what. And he said to me, Maci, you know exactly what you want to do. And he said, very few people at your age do. So he said, go and do it. If you succeed, great. If you don't, that's fine too. Your mom and I will be here to catch you. But you have no real responsibilities. You don't have a mortgage, you don't have kids, you're not married. Your real responsibility is yourself. And so he's like, go do it, and if you succeed, great. If you fail, that's fine too, because you haven't lost anything.
I will say also, having a kid, it's quite the juggle right now. I have a 3-year-old. She's awesome, but it's like having 2 children right now.
We're done? Okay, we're being told that our time is up. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our female founders, and keep it up.